A thin crescent moon hung above the Mississippi, like a chipped silver coin, while the Delta Queen the Seku, fresh from 10 years of dry dock restoration, floated at dockside bedecked in ropes of coloured lanterns. The refurbished saloon gleamed with brass railings and stained glass skylights. Persimmon red carpets muffled the footsteps of high rollers and curiosity seekers lured by the grand relaunch of the historic riverboat casino. Champagne flowed, dice clattered, and gleaming cards slapped green felt to the syncopated pulse of a ragtime trio. At the bar, Nadia Sparks balanced a tray of sazeracs on one palm, weaving elegantly through tuxedos and sequins. 4 years of waitressing had given her the posture of a dancer and the ears of a confessor, both useful this night because beneath the gaiety she sensed tension. It crackled like static, invisible yet unavoidable. She felt it when she passed Captain Roland Beaufort, his white uniform immaculate though his eyes were bruised by worry. When she offered a drink to Cynthia Delacroix, the marketing director, who smiled too brightly and kept glancing at the ornate grandfather clock. And when she checked on dealer Johnny Crowell, her favourite table anchor, who answered her teasing with a taut grin, as if he were about to fold a bad hand. Johnny had trained her to shuffle during slow afternoons, turning boredom into sleight-of-hand magic. He called her Sparkplug, said she had a future on the house side of the felt. Nadia intended to audition for dealer school once she saved enough tips. Tonight, though, she had to smile and keep the libations coming. The Delta Queen the Seco cast off from Rivergate Landing at 9, steam whistle bleating triumphant. Patrons cheered as the great paddle wheel churned moonlit water into foamy lace. Nadia slipped onto the hurricane deck for a breath of fresh air, soothed by the thunderous rhythm of the wheel. That was when she noticed Johnny hurrying down a side stairwell, vest unbuttoned, face slick with sweat. He didn't see her. He disappeared toward the engine level, where staff weren't allowed during operational hours. Nadia frowned. She started to call after him, then hesitated. Another tray awaited. Inside, the mood swelled with liquor and luck. A Texan oil man won 18 grand at craps. His entourage whooped loud enough to rattle the chandeliers. Somewhere else, a slot machine showered coins like a metallic carnival. Nadia delivered mint juleps, accepted tips, and caught snatches of rumour. The Queen's renovation had gone over budget. Private investors expected a windfall tonight. The Coast Guard had threatened inspections because an anonymous complaint alleged structural irregularities. To passengers, gossip flavoured the air like cayenne. To crew, it tasted of dread. Close to midnight, the riverboat shuddered, a sickening jolt that silenced music mid-bar. Glasses rattled, a few chips toppled. Captain Beaufort's voice flooded the PA, shaky but firm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing minor mechanical difficulty. Please remain calm and stay on the main deck until further notice." Nadia exchanged looks with other servers. The wheel had sounded odd just before the jolt, like a clogged heartbeat. She hurried to a porthole. The paddle wheel was slowing, slapping water in lopsided intervals. Minutes later, shrill screams echoed up the forward staircase. A pit boss named Marla sprinted into the gaming lounge, mascara streaked. "Johnny!" she choked. "Johnny's in the wheel." Her knees buckled. Chips scattered across the carpet like spilled confetti. Pandemonium bloomed. Guests crowded railings despite security's pleas. The boat drifted, momentum dying with the wheel. Nadia pushed through knotting bodies until cold air slapped her face. Below, the starboard lanterns illuminated a grotesque tableau. Johnny Crowell's torso lolling between the crimson paddles, limbs corkscrewed, waistcoat shredded. River water and something darker sluiced from the creaking spokes. Sirens from shore cut through the night. Harbour police, ambulance, a coroner. The Delta Queen, too, still tethered by emergency anchors, became a crime scene barely 3 hours into her new life. By 2 a.m., passengers were disembarked for questioning. Nadia gave a statement, shivering in a foil blanket on the levee. She told Detective Hank Reardon what she'd seen, Johnny heading toward the engine level earlier, and the strange impact that followed. Reardon, a broad man with a moustache like iron filings, asked if Johnny was depressed. "Not that I knew," Nadia said. "He loved this boat." The detective scribbled, then mumbled something about accident until proven otherwise. But Nadia's gut pushed back. She'd watched deckhands evaluating the wheel. It hadn't simply jammed. Someone had reversed thrust for 30 seconds, a maneuver impossible from the paddles themselves. It had to be ordered from the pilot house, or executed via the engine controls near the boiler room. Johnny couldn't have done both, be wedged inside and throw the switch. At dawn, authorities released crew to temporary quarters ashore, but Nadia slipped back onto the Queen. She possessed a skeleton keycard, an old favour from Johnny to access the staff galley after hours. She used it now, mourning his mentorship even while craving answers. The casino floor smelled of wilted lilies and stale bourbon, ghostly absent of gamblers. She found Johnny's dealing box still on table 4, cards mid-shoe. She touched them, trying to feel his presence. Instead, she noticed a smear of grease on the green felt, odour of machine oil, not ordinary table grime. She pocketed one of the cards, the ace of spades dappled with the same soot. Then she followed instinct downstairs to engineering. The door was sealed by yellow tape, but the lock had been replaced with a cheap slider. Nadia picked it with a hairpin, heart pounding. Inside, hulking pistons cooled in echoing silence. She ducked low, scanning for footprints, finding them in grit, boot marks and a small splash of red, blood maybe, or paint, leading to an auxiliary panel. A wrench lay beneath it. On the wrench, an engraved name, Marrow. Vincent Marrow was a high-stakes poker regular self-styled river rat who boasted he'd gambled on every floating palace from St. Paul to New Orleans. He wore crocodile boots and a bolo tie shaped like a rattler's head. Enough swagger to make him memorable, enough debt to make him dangerous. Nadia had served him Black Label neat 5 times during the evening. She remembered how he'd watched Johnny deal, eyes sharp as fishhooks. Footsteps clanged above. Nadia froze behind a boiler as 2 voices drifted down. One was Beaufort's, the other Cynthia Delacroix's. "Can't keep the press at bay," Cynthia hissed, heels punctuating each word. "Investors are threatening suit. They'll claim negligence." Beaufort sounded exhausted. "The inspection report cleared us. The paddle wheel's been tested." Then explained Johnny Crowell inside it. There was a pause. Then Beaufort muttered, "He found something. He said he needed to show me documents after shift. Fraud," he hinted. Cynthia's exhale was brittle. "If he uncovered discrepancies, the Coast Guard might shut us for good. Better a scandal than bankruptcy." Their steps retreated. Nadia's mind reeled. Fraud? What type? She photographed the blood speck and the wrench with her phone, then slipped away. At the cheap motel where crew were lodged, panic and grief swirled. Dealers wept, bartenders argued conspiracy. Some packed bags. Nadia changed, showered, then visited Johnny's assigned quarters. The door wasn't locked. His suitcase sat open on the bed, shirts folded crisp. On the nightstand lay a weathered leather diary. She recognized it. Johnny scribbled betting systems inside between rotations. She flipped through pages, martingale tweaks, Fibonacci spreads, until she found a receipt tucked like a bookmark, a parts invoice for paddle wheel bearings dated 2 weeks prior, signed by Cynthia Delacroix but stamped second-hand grade C. Another paper, an anonymous note, scrawled block letters, "Stop digging or you'll sink." Nadia snapped photos again. She heard footsteps and pocketed the diary just before Marla, the pit boss, entered, puffy-eyed. "You too?" she whispered. Nadia nodded. They hugged, crying quietly. Marla confessed she and Johnny had been secretly dating. "He said he'd expose something dirty tonight," she sobbed. "I thought it was casino skims. He wouldn't tell me more." Grief sharpened Nadia's resolve. She contacted Detective Reardon, requesting a private meeting. At the precinct, she laid out her findings: grease-smeared ace, bearing invoice, death threat note, engraved wrench. Reardon listened, non-committal. "Good observations," he conceded, "but circumstantial. Wheel malfunction plus crowel inside equals tragic accident until ballistics prove otherwise." Nadia's frustration simmered. "Ballistics won't show motive." Reardon sighed. "Motive's worthless without proof a person put him there," he said. "Can you show he was murdered? Get me footage, eyewitness, or forensic tie placing someone with him right before the wheel reversed." Camera footage. The Queen had just installed a new surveillance grid. Cynthia boasted of it during orientation, eyes on every chip. If Johnny went below decks, a lens might have caught him, or whoever followed. Reardon obtained a warrant by afternoon. He and Nadia boarded the Queen to access the security room. Inside, monitors flickered blue and dusty. The hard drives smelled of ozone. A technician cycled through logs. The 11:40 p.m. segment, the critical window, was missing, file corrupted. Nadia cursed softly. Someone had deleted evidence. Reardon turned to Captain Beaufort, present under subpoena. "Who has admin access?" "Only myself, Cynthia, and head of IT, Bryce Kelly," Beaufort replied. They called Bryce a lanky coder with gamer tattoos. He swore he hadn't touched archives. While Reardon interviewed him, Nadia scanned the control rack. A portable drive dangled from a USB port, its activity light blinking. She unplugged it, hid it in her purse without thinking. Minutes later, Bryce discovered the absence and panicked. "Where's my backup drive?" Nobody answered. Outside, Nadia plugged the drive into her phone adapter. Encrypted folders labeled by time. She swallowed. This was theft, but necessary. She used a decryption app Johnny had once shown her. He loved puzzles. After 2 attempts, the folders opened. There it was, Cam Eng 2340 She watched, timestamp 2341-7. Johnny descends the metal stairs. He rounds the boiler, consults a clipboard. Then another figure emerges, Cynthia Delacroix. She and Johnny argue, no sound but obvious agitation. Johnny tries to leave. Cynthia grabs his arm. He yanks free, storms toward the paddle's catwalk. Cynthia hesitates, then pulls a radio from her purse, speaking into it. Seconds later, Vincent Marrow appears from a hatch, wielding the engraved wrench. Johnny backs up. Marrow swings. Johnny drops. Marrow drags him, unconscious, onto the paddle's maintenance rail. Cynthia flips a switch on the auxiliary panel. The paddles lurch into reverse, chewing water, and Johnny. Nadia felt bile rise. She clutched a trash can, retching in the hallway. Once breath returned, She placed the drive inside a plastic bag and marched to Reardon. Morning broke with arrests. Headlines roared, "Grand relaunch, grand homicide." Cynthia Delacroix and Vincent Marrow were booked for conspiracy and murder. Bryce Kelly, though ignorant of events, faced obstruction for aiding deletion orders. Captain Beaufort resigned, guilt-ridden that he'd ignored Johnny's warnings. During interrogation footage later made public, motive crystallized. Cynthia masterminded the budget manipulations, purchasing Grade C bearings, yet invoicing premium parts, pocketing the difference to appease investors after overrun costs. Johnny, meticulous in everything, discovered mismatched serial numbers and confronted her. She coaxed gambler Marrow, deep in debt to both the casino and private sharks, to silence Johnny in exchange for wiping his ledger. They staged an accident. Knock Johnny out, reverse the paddles, blame mechanical failure. Deleting the footage would seal the cover-up. But Nadia's eyes and ears, honed on clinking glasses, had heard the discordant notes. 2 weeks later, the Delta Queen the Secu floated idle, investigation stickers on every hatch. Crew were pink-slipped. Nadia's savings evaporated in the interim. Tips couldn't accrue on a shuttered boat. Yet she felt strangely at peace walking the levee where willows dipped into muddy currents. Detective Reardon met her there, hands stuffed in windbreaker pockets. "Medical examiner confirmed your friend was alive when the wheel hit," he said gruffly. "It was murder, plain as levee mud. Without you, it'd have slid under." Nadia swallowed grief. "Won't bring him back." "No," Reardon agreed, "but maybe it brings others forward." He offered her a sealed envelope. "From the mayor's office, citizen commendation. There's also a finder's fee from the insurance company." Inside lay a check with more zeros than Nadia had ever held. "Use it wisely," Reardon advised, "and don't spend it all on roulette." Nadia smiled through tears. "Johnny would insist I buy a top-shelf card shoe." That afternoon she visited Marla, who was packing Johnny's belongings for his sister in Baton Rouge. Nadia handed her the leather diary. "He would want you to have it," Nadia said. Marla traced the worn spine. "He talked about opening a fair deal card school," she whispered. "Maybe we still can," Nadia replied. "In his name." Months rolled like the river. During inquests, maritime officials determined the Queen could sail again after extensive repairs, but investors balked. Eventually, the city council purchased the vessel as a heritage museum. Nadia was hired as education coordinator. On opening day, she stood beside a glass case containing Johnny's lucky silver dollar and a plaque detailing his courage. Tourists flowed through, eyes wide at the wheel's monstrous size. At sunset, when the crowd dissipated, Nadia stepped onto the now motionless paddle catwalk. She placed her palm against scarlet timber, cool in the twilight. A barge's horn bellowed downstream, echoing like a blues note. Nadia imagined Johnny winking, telling her to cut the deck. She pulled a pack from her blazer pocket, her own now black and gold edges. With a flick, she sent cards cascading in a perfect waterfall, the ace of spades swan-diving last, its stain meticulously cleaned yet remembered. She caught every card, squared the deck, and breathed river air seasoned with salt and silt and sorrow. Truth, she reflected, was like a shuffled pack. Every revelation rearranged the order of things, yet the full deck remained. Tonight the deck felt whole again. The moon climbed, bold and round this time, not a chipped coin, but a fresh silver dollar, shining above the Delta Queen too, where stories of fortune and failure would forever interlace, and where a cocktail waitress named Nadia Sparks had proved luck favors those who deal in truths.